Hi, my friends. Welcome. It's Ty Hicks, results coach and national influence and leadership trainer, and I am beyond thrilled to have you here today. I'm going to be talking with you here for a few minutes about why it is that people tend to lose momentum and how it is that we can sustain it over time. Have you ever had the experience where you were clear on something you really wanted, and maybe you even were making some progress on it for a period of time, but then all of a sudden it felt like you all of a sudden had taken a couple steps back and you were back where you started or even further behind? I'm sure you've had that experience at least a couple of times in your life. This is something that so many people have a challenge with, and it's one of the biggest things that my clients come to me with as a problem that they're facing. And for me to be able to help them create a system in which they're going to sustain momentum over time has been a real challenge, right? But I've been able to understand why it is that the human mind does what it does, why it is that we fall back into old behaviors, and how it is that we can create a real path of momentum forward. Now, this is something we could talk about for a long period of time, and it's something that I tend to dive in immense detail with my clients one-on-one. But what I wanted to do is share with you a couple key takeaways today that will help you understand this process. So if this line looks familiar, this is kind of the typical path of progress, that many people have. They'll have a really good day, they'll get excited, they'll get, compelled, and they'll write out some plans and some goals, right around New Year's time or something like that. All of a sudden they'll resolve, all right, this is it, I'm actually making things happen. They'll be on the up and up for a while, and then all of a sudden something will happen. Maybe they start missing a couple workouts, or they get distracted, they get lazy, who knows, and all of a sudden they fall back to here. Maybe they peter out a little bit. Maybe they have another, little jump when all of a sudden they realize their jeans are not fitting the way they used to anymore. And eventually this kind of cycle persists indefinitely, but ultimately people end up being only 2 or 3 degrees above or below where the hell they started in the first place. Does that sound familiar? Okay, so believe it or not, there is actually a different option. There is an option where every single week you feel like progress is being made. You feel like you are becoming more. You feel like you are becoming stronger, smarter, more excited, more spiritually connected, more financially abundant, right? That you are truly creating growth in all of the important areas of your life that you care about. Your relationships, your emotional well-being. All of this is possible if you know what's going to happen if you need to create momentum. What's going to happen, what's likely to happen, I should say, if you don't consciously decide how to create momentum for yourself and how you could fall back into old patterns, right? So here's a couple key takeaways I want to share with you that you've got to have if you want to build momentum. Now, there are some resources for how you can make this happen that I've provided, since I know that creating momentum in a lasting way is something that frustrates a lot of people. It's part of the reason I created my program Life Mastery Monthly that you may be a good candidate for. But regardless of what specific medium it is that you use to sustain momentum over time, I'll tell you the 3 big takeaways you need to have implemented. First of all, you need to have a system. You got to have a system of some sort. And more importantly, the system has got to have accountability baked into it somehow. So what I mean by this is, you could have, for instance, a weekly call with your coach. You could have a monthly meetup group with a mastermind of people that you've put together, and you all share the progress that you've made and talk about the progress you're going to make in the next 30 days, right? You need to have a system, something with a regular time interval that is going to give you a check-in period, and it's got to have accountability baked into it somehow. So I highly recommend, obviously coaching is a great way to go, but you don't necessarily have to go that route. But you need to have somebody in your corner who will tangibly hold you accountable. Don't just set up a weekly conversation with your romantic partner or your best friend, because that will end up just turning into a bullshit session, and they're never going to hold your feet to the fire on what you actually said you were going to get done. You need to find somebody that's a layer or 2 removed from you than that, okay? Somebody that you have a good relationship with, but they're not uncomfortable telling you, hey, that's crap. You said you were going to get this done and you didn't get it done. You've really got to tap into that power of external accountability if you want to sustain momentum. I'm telling you, it's one of the big distinguishing factors between those who create long-term results and those who flounder back into old patterns. You've got to create accountability. It's an absolute must for you. Now, the third big key is to design your environment to support you. So hopefully you'll have already done this in part by creating your system of accountability, but you also need to make sure that you're not allowing for any extraneous stimuli in your environment that are going to derail your progress. Okay, so if you just quit smoking, stop hanging out with smokers. Okay, if you are on a diet, then you need to figure out how you stop going out to eat, or figure out what the environmental elements are that are affecting you, and you need to consciously design a new environment. Maybe you need to go to the grocery store, pick out your healthy stuff, and do meal prep for a week. That might be a very good environmental change for you to make, as opposed to you just going to work and then realizing that the convenient choice is to go get some fast food. So those are all things that you can do as well. Now, if you've really done this, if you've created a system that is structured, okay, and by the way, some of the best ways to do this is to have a day planner, to have a journal, to have a check-in call, something like that. But you want to have something on a daily or weekly basis where you're logging your activity, you're monitoring your results, you're journaling what's happening with you, and ideally you're going to be using that as a medium to share with others, to be accountable, and to have a system of accountability baked into that, okay? There's one resource that I have available that you may find helpful called the Personal Freedom Day Planner. And I developed that literally so people could sustain momentum over time, every single day, so that they could constantly feel like they were making progress, and so they could intentionally design their day in a way where they would be able to get that sense of fulfillment at the end of each one of them, okay? So have that structure, have the accountability, and then lastly, make sure that you make any environmental changes that you need to. Now, that's not everything there is to sustaining momentum over time, but if you've really taken this seriously, and if you don't just think about it, if you don't just write it down as notes, but if you actually do it, okay, if you actually do what I'm telling you to do, then you are going to greatly increase your chances of sustaining momentum over time. So I hope you found this exercise powerful. I want you to keep an eye out for my next video, because I'm going to be sharing with you more strategies and details about how you can more powerfully improve these areas of your life and sustain progress over the long term. So thanks for tuning in with me. So excited to talk to you again soon. Go out there, be passionate, be excited, and be purposeful.